In January 2025, an influencer named Reyna Dunlap disappeared after traveling to Cleveland for a TV show audition. Weeks later, she was discovered dead inside an abandoned home with no ID, no phone, and no obvious cause of death. Police suspected an overdose, but the autopsy told a different story: severe starvation and dehydration, which pointed to something much darker. By the end of today's video, you'll see why Raina's family insists that her death was no accident and why the fight for answers and justice is only just beginning. Welcome to True Crime Nurse, everybody. My name is Kat, and I'm a registered nurse who loves all things nursing and true crime. Don't forget to subscribe and leave me a comment down below for any case suggestions that you have. All right, everybody, let's get into it. Before we get into exactly what happened, we need to talk a little bit about Raina's background and the events that led to this all taking place. Reyna Dunlap, known as Raina, was a 30-year-old social media influencer from Prince George's County, Maryland. She was born on May 7, 1994, and grew up in the College Park area in a close-knit family that included her mother, Karen Jones, and her sister, Kira. Friends and family remember Raina as a vivacious, free-spirited woman who loved being the center of attention. According to her mother, Raina had a magnetic presence and said that if she couldn't get attention in a positive way, she would get it in a negative way. She was known as the nude queen on social media, and by the end of 2024, she had grown a pretty significant following. Her content really pushed boundaries, and she wasn't shy about stirring the pot. This approach earned her both fans and critics, but it kept people watching. In real life, though, Raina was described as a kind, loving, and generous person to a fault. Raina's pursuit of fame took a big turn in the fall, though. Auditions for the reality show Baddies Midwest were being held in multiple cities across the region, and Raina really felt like this was her chance. In October 2024, Raina flew from Maryland to Cleveland, Ohio for the audition. She'd never spent any significant time in Cleveland before, and her family later said that they had no family connections in Cleveland at all, so this trip was solely driven by Raina's dream. Raina arrived in Cleveland full of hope. Baddies, produced by Natalie Nunn, is known for its outrageous drama, with young women chasing social media fame through on-camera fights and arguments. Hundreds of people attend these casting calls all over. Unlike many contestants who might travel for an audition and then just return home, Raina actually decided to stay in Cleveland after the audition. Posts on her social media showed that she stayed in the Cleveland area through November and December of 2024. It's not entirely clear why she stayed so long, though. Maybe she was networking with people that she had met through the show, possibly attending follow-up events, or waiting in hopes of callbacks from producers. However, during this time, concerning signs emerged that Raina was experiencing trouble. According to social media activity later reviewed by her family and the reporters, Raina appeared to be battling a crisis during November and December. Her posts suggest that she was afraid and upset. At the time, her family was unaware of these posts, and because Raina had typically kept her struggles so private, these weren't signs that they caught immediately. One alarming development did occur when on November 29, 2024, Raina visited a crisis center in Cleveland. The family later found documentation of this visit among Raina's belongings. This strongly suggests that Raina had been assaulted or was in fear of sexual violence while in Cleveland. This is a critical moment in the timeline today because it means that by late November, about a month after arriving in Ohio, Raina had already encountered someone who had made her feel afraid and harmed her. The fact that she had sought help meant that she recognized the danger she was in, and that is terrifying to think about. It's possible that she was provided resources or advice from the center, but unfortunately, it seems that she either remained stuck in some type of situation or the perpetrator got away with it. According to statements from her followers, Raina claimed on social media that she had been trafficked and drugged. She even posted a photo where she appeared badly injured with bruises on her face and neck. Next to the photo, she wrote that she had been on drugs against her will. Some fans reached out and commented with concern, but shortly after, that post vanished. We don't know if Raina deleted it herself or if her account was locked or hacked by someone else. By the time her family searched through her social media after she had passed away, those posts were gone, and the family never saw the post at the time that it went up. They found out about this after she was already gone. Raina had truly been in a dangerous situation as 2024 was ending. In mid-December, she still shared some of her usual content, which made it hard for outsiders to figure out, are these concerning posts real or are they not? Because Raina was independent and had a history of traveling without constant contact, Her mother and sister didn't panic when weeks passed with only a little bit of communication with her. In fact, the last direct contact that they had with her was a voicemail that Raina left in November, and she sounded completely fine. That voicemail was placed when Raina's phone still showed a Maryland location, leading her family to believe that she was still at home and safe when she made that call. As Christmas and New Year's approached, Raina's absence became stranger, though. She didn't come home for the holidays, and she also didn't even reach out on Christmas Day to her mother or her sister. In hindsight, relatives found this really odd. Even with Raina's free-spirited ways, she was family-oriented enough that total silence on those days was very out of character for her. Some online commentators wondered how her mom didn't know where she was in November, specifically during the holidays. But the answer was that Raina's mother explained that Raina moved on her own time, and this is just how she was. They had faith that she was busy in pursuing her dream and would resurface when she was ready. Raina did make a public post on January 1st, but this was the last post she would ever make. After January 1st, all of Raina's social media accounts went quiet. For someone who posted regularly, often daily, this sudden silence was alarming. By the first week of January, Raina's family realized something had to be wrong. Reyna Dunlap, Raina's younger sister, had been trying to reach her to wish her a Happy New Year and got no response. Days passed without a single word from her. By around January 5th or 6th, Kira's concern turned into panic. It had been roughly a month since anyone in the family had actually spoken to Raina. Desperate for leads, Kira took to social media on January 6, 2025 to plead for help. She recorded an emotional video addressing Raina's followers and the public. Kira said it is very, very important because something bad has happened to her and we're trying to figure out what happened. She explained that the family had lost contact with Raina about a month ago and that they were really counting on the public to provide any additional information. Kira asked if anyone had been in contact with Raina in the recent weeks, and she hoped that someone in Cleveland or maybe even back in Maryland might know what Raina had been up to during that time or maybe who she was with. Unfortunately, no one came forward with a solid lead at that time. Some followers mentioned that they had noticed Raina's concerning posts but didn't know how to intervene or help her. The outreach did succeed in raising some awareness in Cleveland, though. The very next day after Kira's post, the family's worst fears happened. On January 7th, the family received notification that a body matching Raina's description had been found in Cleveland. In fact, Raina had already been discovered deceased, but initial confusion around identifying her body delayed the news from reaching her relatives right away. Kira updated her TikTok post with a short, devastating comment saying she's dead unfortunately, and they were trying to find out who she was with in Ohio. Cleveland authorities contacted Maryland authorities once they tentatively had identified the body as Reyna Dunlap. At this point, however, the information available to the family was minimal. They knew that Raina was gone, but not how she died or what even happened to her. Local Cleveland officials had not yet released any public statements, and the investigation was just beginning. The family, in total shock and heartbreak, left to head to Cleveland to get answers in person. Karen, Kira, and an uncle traveled together. On January 3rd, 2025, they met with detectives from the Cleveland Police Department and the medical examiner's office. This meeting was to both officially identify Raina's body and to exchange any information that could help the investigation. The family brought along everything that they had, including the distressing evidence of Raina's November Crisis Center visit and knowledge of her social media posts about trafficking. This was to ensure the police understood that something criminal may have happened. While in Cleveland, the family took proactive steps on the ground. They printed out and handed out flyers with Raina's photo, spoke to residents in the neighborhood where she had actually been found already, and canvassed areas that she was known to have visited. These efforts actually did lead to some leads. At least 2 people recognized Raina's picture and recalled seeing her at the end of 2024. These individuals said that Raina appeared to be in good health at the times that they saw her, meaning she wasn't visibly injured or distressed, but they had no information on who she was with or where she was staying. It was a small comfort to hear that she had been alive and seemed okay at some points, but it still didn't solve the mystery. The family urged anyone with even the smallest details to please contact the police. They publicized a tip line, which is 216-621-1234, for any anonymous tips in hopes that someone might break their silence. So at this point, Raina's disappearance had transitioned into a death investigation. But how was she found? Karen Reyna Dunlap's body was discovered in Cleveland on or around January 18th, 2025. Police records and media reports differ on that exact date, though. Some say that it was January 18th, while others say that police found her and confirmed her identity by January 21st. What is clear is that by January 21st, law enforcement publicly acknowledged that a 30-year-old woman from Maryland had been found dead in a vacant house on Cleveland's east side. The location was an abandoned home on East 65th Street and Francis Avenue in the Kinsman neighborhood of Cleveland. This is a sparsely populated area that's known for homes that are boarded up or abandoned and frequented by squatters or illicit activity, if you know what I mean. Just wait though, guys, because you will be shocked when we get into the autopsy results. And you know that as a nurse, that's where I really like to dive into these cases to help paint a more thorough picture for all of you. Reyna's body was found lying in a bed inside the abandoned house, and around her were some very suspicious items. There was a pack of unopened needles and what appeared to be hard drugs found nearby. These items were not on her, but scattered in the vicinity around her. The front door of the house was left ajar, meaning that the scene was easily accessible to anyone passing by, and it's unclear who first encountered Reyna's body, at least in my research, but it could have been a passerby, maybe another squatter, or eventually police doing a welfare check after a tip. But once authorities arrived, they secured the site and started an investigation. The initial examination found no obvious signs of trauma on Reyna's body. She did not have a gunshot wound, stab wound, or any clear injuries that would immediately point to a cause of death like homicide. This, combined with the presence of drug paraphernalia in the room, led police initially to suspect that the cause of death was an overdose. This was a young person found dead in a known drug house with drugs all over. In line with that, one of the first statements from law enforcement was that this incident is believed to be an overdose pending further investigation. They cautioned that the final determination would be made by the medical examiner after an autopsy, but that initial bias towards an overdose shaped the early investigation. The decision to lean towards overdose was criticized by Reyna's family as a rush to judgment. One reason for their initial assessment, though, was literally the location and state of the crime scene. Reyna was found in a really rough neighborhood known for drug use, and as Reyna's mother shared, police told them that assuming overdose is standard in cases involving unidentified bodies found in these types of conditions. Reyna's attire and appearance seemed to puzzle investigators, though. According to her mother and her sister, when Reyna's body was found, she was dressed in baggy, oversized clothing that was very unlike her typical style. Reyna was petite and about 5 feet tall and known for wearing fashionable form-fitted clothing, yet here she was in a baggy outfit. Her hair and nails were freshly done as if she had recently been to a salon or had been maintaining her appearance all the way up until shortly before her death. This contrast of her neat hair and manicure, but wearing strange clothes that were ill-fitted and abandoned in a house, struck the family as completely out of character for her. They immediately told police that Reyna would never have walked into an abandoned home on her own, suggesting the scene didn't add up. To them, it looked staged or at least suspicious. Why would a woman who had just had her nails done end up in an abandoned home voluntarily dressed in someone else's baggy clothing? The police took note of these concerns, but at the moment, they still had to wait for forensic evidence to figure out what actually happened to her. Initially, Reyna was not carrying any identification. In fact, her belongings were missing, so like we talked about earlier, there was no phone, no ID, and no purse, which was very strange for her. This delayed the process of figuring out who she was. It's possible that fingerprints or dental records were used to eventually confirm her identity, though. Another possibility is that once Kira's TikTok and the social media search went viral around January 6th, Cleveland police connected the dots that the unidentified woman they had found might be the missing influencer that they talked about online. Another challenge for investigators was timing. They needed to establish when Reyna actually died. If she died around mid-January, what happened in the days or weeks before? Detectives had to essentially perform backwards reconstruction and retrace the path from the moment that she arrived in Cleveland months earlier through her last known sightings in late 2024 up to when she vanished from social media in early January 2025. This involved a lot of groundwork and talking to anyone who might have seen Reyna in Cleveland. Reyna had never been reported missing either, so this means that the police literally had to start from zero with no earlier investigation to piggyback off of. The Cleveland Police Department, or CPD, opened up a case on Reyna's death in January 2025, and it was initially handled by the department's homicide unit. A CPD spokesperson publicly stated that this was believed to be an overdose, but that the medical examiner's findings would guide their next steps. Reyna's body underwent autopsy shortly after being found in January 2025. However, the full results, especially the toxicology, can take several weeks to months. In Reyna's case, the family did not receive the final autopsy results until several months later. By March and into April 2025, the toxicology results started to trickle in. As Reyna's mother predicted, they showed no evidence of hard drugs or narcotics in her system. This was hugely important because it ruled out overdose by illicit drugs as a cause and made the entire crime scene plus missing belongings seem extremely staged. So if it's not an overdose, then what happened? The autopsy's deeper findings provided that answer. According to the Dunlap family, who have publicly spoken about these results, the medical examiner concluded that Raina died from a stroke caused by blood clots, which were induced by severe malnutrition and dehydration. In other words, she was starved and deprived of water to the point that her body shut down. The prolonged lack of food and fluids likely led to organ failure and a catastrophic clotting event that led to a stroke. So let's break that down even further. This means that Raina had not eaten or drank sufficient fluids over a very long period of time. The autopsy would have noted physical signs like an empty stomach and signs like dried tissues, electrolyte imbalances, and markers of starvation in organ tissues. Dehydration can cause blood volume to drop and the blood to thicken, raising the risk of blood clots. This is one of many reasons why hydration is so incredibly important. The autopsy found that blood clots had formed. These clots traveled, which caused the stroke, meaning that blood flow to Raina's brain had been blocked, which caused the brain damage and death to that tissue. It's an unusual cause of death for a 30-year-old, and it emphasizes how extreme that malnutrition and dehydration was for her. Essentially, her body was under such turmoil that it started forming clots, which is a sign of prolonged stress to the body, not a sudden event like an overdose. It was clearly not natural for a 30-year-old to starve to death. Accident doesn't seem to fit the case either, because it would be hard to accidentally starve to death in a city with resources and money available unless something very, very bizarre or unusual happened. That leaves homicide or undetermined causes of death. If the evidence suggested someone else deliberately deprived her of food or water, it would be homicide. If they can't prove how she ended up in that state, then maybe it would be undetermined. The family has firmly interpreted the findings pointing to homicide, though, believing that she may have been held captive. Her family posted on social media, she, quote, in all capital letters, was starved to death, end quote. They argued that the autopsy supports belief that she had been abducted on or around January 2nd and held against her will and starved. Given the timeline, if she stopped posting January 1st, was taken around then, the time frame of January 2nd to mid-January is about 2 weeks, which might be how long she suffered without food or water. Let's incorporate that timeline now with some of the medical evidence. Raina likely ate very little, if anything, for several days. An empty stomach could be just a few days without food, but malnutrition implies more than just 3 days, and it could also mean that she was given minimal food and or water over a longer period of time, gradually wasting away and suffering. No water for even a few days can be lethal depending on the situation, so she must have had some fluids or she wouldn't have survived beyond a week. Again, maybe her captor gave her occasional water, but not enough to prevent severe dehydration. It's possible that she was restrained during this time, which is why she couldn't obtain food or water herself, but the autopsy didn't find any ligature marks. However, being bedridden could also cause blood clots because the blood pools and then clots if you're not up and moving around. For any of you that have been in the hospital and been frustrated with us nurses that get you up and around walking all the time, this is actually one of the main reasons that we do this. It's to prevent blood clots. So, if she was kept tied up or in a confined small space, that immobility plus dehydration could cause clots to form in her legs, which then travel to her brain, causing the stroke. The mention of blood clots causing the stroke is telling too, because dehydration alone can do that, but prolonged sitting and lying in one position, like being held captive, also contributes to clot formation. The autopsy also found that there were no injuries indicating physical trauma at the time of her death. Apart from the earlier injury that she posted about with the bruising, it would have healed by that time in January. The autopsy didn't note any recent fractures or lethal injuries. This again aligns with the idea that she was killed by neglect and withholding rather than direct assault. It is a form of murder, just as cruel, but harder to detect if you're not looking for it. When the family learned of these results, it validated everything that they feared. Karen Jones stated publicly that the cause of death was determined based on the location, not evidence, essentially criticizing how the initial overdose label was made before science even had a chance to weigh in. Now science had spoken, and it said no overdose, no drugs, but yes, starvation. The family's tone shifted from pleading to a mixture of justification and anger, and they took it to socials. They wanted the world to know that this was a homicide in their eyes. One of Karen's posts online directly addressed the Cleveland police with frustration and saying, quote, "The lie has been exposed, but the truth has not. She was starved to death. CPD, do your job and protect your community," end quote. This was in September 2025, so very recently, showing that even months after knowing the autopsy results, the family felt that the police hadn't done enough with that information. The autopsy results forced investigators to reframe the case. Raina's death could no longer be seen as accidental or self-inflicted. If an otherwise healthy 30-year-old woman ends up dying of starvation and dehydration in an abandoned home, something criminal almost certainly had to have happened. The medical examiner's conclusion likely pushed CPD to officially consider it at least as a suspicious death or homicide. However, we haven't seen a public statement from CPD post-autopsy. Let me know your thoughts on that in the comments down below. Now, armed with the cause of death, investigators would try to answer who did this to her. Was Raina held captive somewhere else maybe before being moved to the house? The autopsy doesn't tell where she starved, just that she did. It's possible that she wasn't starving in that abandoned house the entire time. It's also possible that her body had been dumped at the Francis Avenue house with some planted needles to mislead investigators, and if that's the case, the crime scene is elsewhere and evidence might be lost until they find that location. The autopsy's findings also prompted law enforcement to involve homicide detectives more deeply. Now it's potentially a murder by unlawful restraint like kidnapping leading to death. Detectives would now need to build a timeline of the last 2 weeks. Did anyone see her after New Year's? Was she locked away right after January 1st, or did she voluntarily meet someone on the 2nd and get trapped? In the absence of an identified suspect, numerous theories have emerged, some driven by family and others by the internet and media. We're going to talk about some of the theories, and I want you to let me know what your thoughts are. From early on, Raina's family firmly believed that she fell victim to foul play. The autopsy results of starvation solidified the belief that Raina was kidnapped, held captive, and intentionally starved to death. They speculate the timeline as Raina last communicated freely on January 1st, so around the 2nd, she may have been abducted. She was then held against her will for days or weeks. During that captivity, her captors deprived her of food and adequate water, leading to her decline and eventual death. The family has voiced concerns that this scenario could be linked to trafficking or exploitation. Their reasoning is grounded in Raina's own fear and posts about this being the case. The family's theory is also that Raina's body was moved to the abandoned house after she died. They feel that Raina would never willingly go into such a place, and the presence of planted paraphernalia hints that someone tried to set the stage for her. If true, the real crime scene is somewhere else. I want to add that Cleveland has had trafficking issues in the past, like many major cities, so it's not far-fetched to assume that that might be the case. If this theory is correct, Raina's death might not have been the original intent because traffickers want to exploit their victims, not kill them, because murder attracts law enforcement. Her death by starvation could imply that she resisted or maybe things went wrong and her captors essentially left her to die. Now remember, this is speculation, but it's one the family and many supporters consider plausible given the context, and honestly guys, I agree. Many speculate that the reality show circuit that Raina was involved in holds the key to some of these questions. It's confirmed that Raina went to Cleveland for Baddies Midwest, and she knew some people that were connected to the show. One idea is that someone from that circle betrayed her. This could be a fellow contestant or friend, or more likely, someone behind the scenes who offered to help her or show her around Cleveland after the audition. Remember that Raina extended her stay far beyond the audition. Why? Possibly because she was enticed by someone promising networking opportunities for a role. If an executive producer figure is involved, that's especially chilling. That would be someone with a title that Raina would have trusted. Natalie Nunn, the actual producer of the show, is a public figure and maybe not directly involved in this, but someone could have falsely presented themselves as a producer that worked with her. In these shows, there are usually casting agents and club promoters hosting audition after parties. The speculation here is that Raina might have fallen in with a dangerous crowd through the audition events. Several posts online discussed how the Baddies and Bad Girls Club scene can be exploitative and violent because these women are encouraged to fight and one-up each other. Many participants are dancers or in vulnerable situations hoping to boost their careers, which traffickers and predators might also be aware of. While this theory doesn't pinpoint any specific person, it suggests that the answer lies in investigating the people that Raina interacted with during and after that audition. Another theory that was considered, especially early on prior to the autopsy results, was whether Raina could have been suffering from a mental health crisis that led her to hide away and inadvertently harming herself. The rationale was that her social media posts seemed erratic and paranoid to some. Could it have been a mental health breakdown causing her to imagine trafficking threats? In this hypothetical scenario, it's easy to imagine Raina, overwhelmed or delusional, retreating to an abandoned place and neglecting to care for herself. However, this theory has largely been dismissed as the evidence doesn't support it. Raina's posts about being harmed were backed up by real events, not hallucinations. Additionally, Raina was fiery, and her sister said that she always expected she was going to be okay and pull through any situation, which is far from someone who would passively just waste away on their own accord. So, while mental health issues can't be entirely ruled out, there's no indication that she intentionally secluded herself to die. Her family strongly refutes any notion that Raina did this to herself, and the facts support them. Karen Reyna Dunlap's tragic story raises numerous issues and talking points. What happened to Raina highlights issues that any woman can face when traveling away from home. At 30, Raina was a grown woman, but even adults can fall prey to dangerous situations, especially while traveling in an unfamiliar city. She had no close friends or family in Cleveland, meaning no one noticed she had immediately went missing. Simple practices like sharing your location with a family member on your phone or agreeing on code words can save lives. Raina's family wishes that they had known that she was leaving Maryland because they said that they might have insisted on daily updates and locations from her. The Dunlaps have said that initially they weren't concerned by Raina's silence because it was, quote, in her nature to be out of touch, end quote. Now they urge other families to err on the side of caution. The family turning to social media to get answers speaks to a mistrust or frustration with the officials, and I can understand. Building better relationships between the police and family in cases of suspicious deaths is critical. Even saying, "We hear you, we're investigating all possibilities, including foul play," can really help families feel seen and reduce the need to start taking it to a public campaign and be taken seriously. Think about cases like Tawana McGowan, the story we just covered. The police exist to support, serve, and protect, and there are far too many cases where the families don't get that. Raina's mom's TikTok basically was her saying, "Please listen to us and don't write our daughter off." The fact that she had to do that is unfortunate and telling. Throughout this whole ordeal, what's been remarkable is the role of the community, both immediate, like Raina's family and friends, and the online community in fighting for answers. The hashtag Justice for Raina movement was instrumental in ensuring that her case doesn't quietly disappear. Advocacy like this has made a difference in many cases. In Raina's case, the attention likely ensured that the autopsy was not rushed or ignored, and that police know the public is watching. It also provided emotional support for her family. They have expressed gratitude that so many strangers care about their family and especially about Raina. This collective caring is a bright light amongst so much darkness in the world right now. It shows that people do recognize injustice and rally together. Victims who might have been forgotten otherwise now have armies of online warriors, citizen detectives, and empathetic followers who amplify their stories like we're doing here today. However, with that comes responsibility. There's a lot of misinformation risk too. Thankfully, in Raina's situation, the family controlled the narrative by sharing facts and shutting down rumors, like addressing that she had not had any drugs in her system, so rumor mills about her being an addict and overdosing were quickly shut down. As this case remains unsolved, Raina's legacy is being shaped not by just how she lived, but by how her death might inspire changes. Her mother said, "I feel like somebody kicked a hole through my soul, and the biggest part of my heart is gone." That profound grief has been channeled into action. They held a memorial where instead of just mourning, they also spread awareness of what happened to her. There's talk in her community about establishing an influencer safety workshop or network, and this is something unique that has emerged from realizing that internet personalities oftentimes lack industry support or even knowledge about personal security when traveling for collaborations or auditions. On the law enforcement side, while not public, we can only hope that the CPD and other departments following the story will adjust how they handle similar cases. Maybe they'll implement a policy that anytime a body is found under odd circumstances, even with drugs present, that they will treat it as potential foul play until proven otherwise, rather than the other way around. The cost of a mistake is too high, as we see in today's case. Reyna's life was so much more than the manner of her death. She was a beloved daughter and sister with big dreams, but if any meaning can be salvaged from this tragedy, it's in the lessons that we learn and the actions that we take moving forward. As of now, September of 2025, justice for Reyna Dunlap remains unfulfilled. No one has been arrested or charged. Yet, her family and supporters are steadfast that this case will be solved someday. They're keeping her name alive in the press and online and refusing to let this case go cold. Reyna's mother, Karen, has stated that the worst is just not knowing, and my heart aches that she doesn't have the answers that she deserves in order to heal. For her and the rest of Reyna's loved ones, every day without answers is torture. But they hold on to hope that with continued pressure, new tips will emerge and that maybe someone's conscience will get to the best of them and they'll speak up. The Cleveland police have a second chance with the evidence of homicide being more clear now. They can still bring the perpetrator to justice and give the Dunlap family closure. Through the tragedy of Karen Reyna Dunlap's loss, many people who never knew Reyna have felt connected to her story. But ultimately, nothing can compensate her family for her absence. We can only hope that the truth of what happened to Reyna will fully come to light someday and that those responsible will be held accountable for Reyna, for her family, and for everyone who has walked a similar path and fears a similar fate. I know today was a shorter video because it's a recent case that's currently ongoing, like a trend that we've seen lately, but it was heavily requested, and I will keep you guys updated and likely record a part 2 as we get more information released. As always, I am so grateful for you for spending time with me today. Don't forget our butterfly secret handshake in the chat, and have the most incredible special week, Nurses Orders. I will see you guys next weekend where we start our Halloween series, and it's going to be a deep dive. Bye, you guys.